Our guest, the legendary Jim Rogers. Jim is an author, he's a financial commentator, he's an adventurer, and successful international investor. He has been frequently featured in many notable media outlets worldwide. He has also appeared as a regular commentator and columnist and has been a professor at the Columbia University. In 1990 to 1992, Jim fulfilled his lifelong dream of motorcycling over 100,000 miles across 6 continents. Actually achieving this feat earned him a spot in the Guinness Book of World Records. And I'm a biker guy, so I appreciate that, but I don't think I've biked 100,000 miles in my life, and he did it in 2 years. I applaud him for that. As a private investor, he constantly analyzes countries through which he travels for investment ideas. Jim, welcome to Liberty Talk Radio.
I'm delighted to be here, Joe. I see we're on video. I didn't know they had video on radio now.
Oh, I tell you, we are so high tech now, we hardly know what we're doing, Jim. All right, let's see. Too bad we're on the air now, but I wanted to talk to you. I think you and I have a common acquaintance, but we'll talk about that later on. Jim, the world has been in chaos now for some time. We are, as you very well know, and probably know too well, or I hate the fact that you know too well, that, negative interest rates and all these other financial shenanigans that are going on, which make absolutely no sense. They just give me a headache, and I have never studied this stuff before in my life, never found it in a book, but we have these world bankers, I think, fouling things up further than they should be, And what I'd like to hear from you is, first, before we start, I want to ask you a general question. Traveling through 6 continents, has that influenced the way you think about investing, about other countries? Has that been an influence in your life, or has that just been a kick that you're glad that's over?
Well, it started out as a kick. That's why I did it. I wanted adventure. I was 37, I'd retired, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to see the world. And I'd always, since I was a teenager, wanted to go around the world on a motorcycle. Who knows where that came from, Joe, but I'd always wanted to do it. So I set out to do it. And one thing about seeing the world close to the ground is you find out that nearly everything you've been told, especially the propaganda, is wrong. You learn what countries are really like if you see them from the ground up. You find you find all sorts of opportunities. Since I'm an investor, I find investment opportunities. But there's there are massive numbers of opportunities out there for those who are willing to go out there and find them.
Yeah.
There are also, Joe, you're going to find that we're all alike. Forget the propaganda. Every time I'd go someplace, they would say, "Where have you been?" I said, "I came from there." They said, "Oh my God, how'd you get out alive?" "Where are you going next?" "I'm going there." "You're going to get killed there." Everybody's scared to death of everybody else because the politicians stir up anger. But we're all the same. We all drink the same beer. We all dance. We all like to eat and drink. It's amazing how we're all alike if we would just go and see each other.
Yeah. It's interesting. I read a book on a gentleman who traveled. This is too many years ago. I don't recall his name, but he's well known, and he traveled the Silk Road, I think it was called. And he said it was interesting is that every country he went to, everyone warned him in that country, watch out when you cross the border and go into the next country. All these bad things are going to happen to you. And he said he'd go to that country, and then those people will say the same thing about the place he just came from and about the place he was going to. So that sort of confirms what you just said. But you're right. We're all alike. We're all looking for peace, harmony. We want to get along. We want to trade. Unfortunately, the thing that gets in the way are all of these bureaucrats making all the money, sucking the income of the average citizen dry. And that creates, I think, the tensions in the world. If we get rid of these bureaucrats, I think we can all get along pretty well. What do you think, Jim?
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Joe, you don't know this, but people used to tell me going to Oklahoma was dangerous.
They were right.
Well, I'm an Okie. My great-grandparents were from Oklahoma. My grandparents, my mother was from Oklahoma. My parents met at the University of Oklahoma. I got scores of Okie cousins. So I'm an Okie, and that's why they would tell me that.
All
But
right.
I told them Oklahoma is just as wonderful as any other place.
Well, my wife's an Okie. She's from Mongolia, Oklahoma, and she married some kid, the street kid from Harlem, New York, that sang doo-wop back in the 50s. So you can imagine what a match we are, you know.
Well, she was right. Oklahoma's dangerous.
No.
You know?
And our booking agent, our scheduler, is from Spiro, Oklahoma. You know.
Ah.
You know. Anyway, we'll get on to that. They used to call me. My nickname in New York. You know, everyone had a nickname in New York and Harlem. You know, it was the Italian ghetto. You know, there was Nicky Beans, Louis Fish Eyes. I was Joey Popcorn. I want you to know.
Well, I'm delighted. I like popcorn, so I'm delighted to hear.
Well, Jim, the big thing in the news today, and I know you've been on Sofiko, you know, on Russian television, and I watched that interview. I've watched many interviews, and she really hammered away at this Brexit, and the Brexit, I guess, is the proper pronunciation, and what its ramifications are. I think my question is, do you see this as an independent event, or do you see this as a underlying boiling point that eventually will percolate to the top?
Well, Joe, stocks, I'm using stocks as an example. Stocks in America and elsewhere have been doing nothing for a year and a half sideways.
Right.
In stock market talk, that's called distribution. The smart guys are selling to somebody else because they know something bad is coming. And usually what comes bad after distribution is a bear market. Something always sets off the bear market. This is the straw that perhaps broke the camel's back. You've already had some markets around the world going down before this. So no, you should be very, very worried, Joe. You should be prepared because we're going to have some very hard times in the world for the next couple of years. This is just the beginning.
Yeah. You know, I'm a closet economist, I guess. I mean, I've studied economics. I've taken economics courses. I went to Pace College before it was a university, a prestigious school in business community in Wall Street. In fact, because I went to Pace College, I got a job before I even graduated, and I was a numbnut student, I'll be honest with you. But don't tell anybody else that. And yet, in studying economics and finance, I have never read one word, one whisper about negative interest rates. To me, negative interest rates says your money is worthless. In fact, it's an oxymoron because interest means you're getting something of value, and they're saying you're getting something of value that has no value, but you have to pay us. I mean, in fact, it's a terminology that makes no sense whatsoever, and yet world bankers are using this as the baseline for their economic policy. I think I'm going nuts.
No, they're going nuts, Joe. It's not you that's going nuts. The reason you didn't read about it is because it's never been done before and it hasn't worked. But you have to understand, Joe, these are bureaucrats and academics. They don't know what they're doing. Somebody says, let's try negative interest rates. Another guy says, let's do it. They all try it. They follow each other. It hasn't worked. You think they're going to admit that they've been wrong? I mean, these people went to Ivy League universities, for God's sakes. They're not going to talk about that they made mistakes, that they've done something wrong. No. But we're all going to pay the price. It's going to get worse.
You know, many of the people not many, but some of the people I've had on this program no longer live in the United States. I mean, we had Mark Faber. I'm sure you know him and know him well. Mark Faber, he was on the program about 3 weeks ago. You know, he was calling in from Hong Kong. You're in Singapore. There's people from all over the globe. And I know even Peter Schiff has now an office in Puerto Rico. When I went down there, we couldn't visit him because we couldn't get a cab to go there. But, there is this urgency and concern. I guess concern and somewhat of an urgency to divest yourself of, the free world, America, the land of opportunity. And people are finding better opportunities everywhere else in the globe, but they're not staying here. Am I oversimplifying that?
Joe, I'm an American. I'm an American voter, taxpayer, citizen. I don't like saying it, but it's true. There are many more opportunities elsewhere now. Once upon a time, there were fabulous opportunities in America.
Right.
But now America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world, and the debts are going higher and higher.
Yeah.
And those guys in Washington are meddling in everybody's business, making enemies of us all over the world. It's almost impossible now for an American citizen to open a bank account outside the U.S.
Right.
I mean, this is astonishing. There was a time when everybody just loved to talk to an American. Now they won't even let you in the bank.
Right.
They don't want you or your money. This is serious. As I said, Joe, you should be worried and you should be prepared. Yeah. It's going to get worse.
Now, for the average investor who probably has a difficult time comprehending international investments. I mean, for example, I know you're pretty high on Kazakhstan. I want to ask you about Mongolia because I know it's a pre-emerging market, and it's very illiquid at this time. But there are places such as that. Apparently, you're not too high on India. India is a place where there's just too much bureaucracy. And for the same reason, Brazil is drowning in its own bureaucracy. So Brazil is a bad place. And I agree. I wouldn't touch Brazil with a 10-foot pole. But there are other opportunities in countries. And the way you have expressed yourself, I get the impression that there are countries that may not be as sort of free and well known as the United States in international trade, but they don't have the built-in bureaucracy yet. And so that's a good opportunity to get in now before it gets worse.
Well, everybody should only invest in what they themselves know about, Joe. Don't listen to me don't even listen to you. Just invest in what you yourself know about. But yes, if you know about some of these other places, I mean, there are fantastic opportunities out there. Nigeria is changing. It's been a wreck. For my whole life, it's been a wreck. There are many places that are now getting better, and if you know about them, you should start learning about them. Maybe your grandparents are from Ireland. Maybe your grandparents are from Poland or Brazil, wherever they're from. If you know something, you might start educating yourself, and you might find some great opportunities. But, Joe, my number one advice to everybody is don't invest unless you yourself know a lot about it.
Yeah.
Don't listen to me or even you. Maybe your wife.
Me?
Your wife.
I tell you, I've never been wrong. I think I was wrong once in 1953, but I corrected it immediately. I tell you, I admit that I was not perfect, But you're right. You have to know something about it. But people because people don't have the background that you have, and haven't been involved in investing, they are passively sitting there watching everything pass by. So they are reluctant to move unless they see everyone else move. So they get caught up in the tide. And this is what kills them because they say, well, Jesus has got to be good. Everyone is doing it. But I know what type of investor you are. You go in when things look really bad, but are on an upswing, where the opportunity is. If you have a 3 or 4 or 5 year horizon, I like that investing. That's what I like to do. But I can sit here and wait because I'm going to live forever.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, Joe, especially if you live in Oklahoma, because Oklahoma is a lot of fun. But when I see everybody going in one direction, I immediately start saying, well, maybe we should go the other way.
Right.
Because usually if you go the other way, no matter where they're going, you're going to make money in the end. Not always. You have to do your homework. But if you see, whenever I see everybody doing the same thing, I look to see if maybe they're wrong. So that's a very important lesson you have to learn. But Joe, you said people don't know what I know, blah, blah, blah. But everybody watching this or listening to this knows a lot about something.
Right.
Cars, sports, fashion, whatever it happens to be. They know something. They read about it. They look at it on TV, on the internet. They love to work on whatever it is. They will see something change in their industry long before I will, because they read about fashion every day, or cars or sports or whatever. And when you see something changing that you know is going to be successful, then start doing your research, start doing your homework, and you will probably find a good investment. You'll know it long before I do, because you read this every day. You go on the internet. First thing you do is go on a website that talks about fashion. I don't know the first thing about fashion or cars or anything else. But the people who do, if they start thinking, aha, this is an opportunity, they're going to make a lot more money than everybody else.
Yeah, but there's still that fear factor because typically the best time to invest is the J.P. Morgan paradigm. You know, when there's blood in the street, at that time people are running, and he's waiting to strike at the right time. Very difficult for investors to do.
Well, what I'm talking about is that's one way, yes, and that's a good way often. Because of the fear, but I'm talking about you have to have fear in the street when you see something new in fashion that you know everybody that's going to sweep the world. There's no fear. You see it before everybody else does.
Right. Okay.
In fact,
I see what you mean.
There's no emotion at all because everybody's ignoring you. Nobody's paying any attention at all. They think you're nuts. But you, because you know a lot about that field, know it's going to work, so you can quietly scoop things up when everybody else is totally ignoring you. There's no fear. There's no exhilaration. There's just boredom. That's where you can also find great opportunity.
Yeah. How would you describe the world economy today? You know, if you just had to characterize it, how would you do that? How would you word that?
We are heading into disaster. You're on the verge of disaster. Look out the window. You might see it coming. It's that close. Yeah. Just about everywhere in the world is going to have serious problems in the next 2 or 3 years. My fear is that it's going to last much longer than 2 or 3 years. It could lead to bankruptcies, wars, everything else. In the past, when we've had horrific economic conditions around the world, it has often led to war. I don't like saying it, but history shows it. And one of the lessons of history, Joe, is that most people don't learn the lessons of history.
Right.
They don't even know the lessons of history, and if they know them, they ignore them.
Yeah.
Well, history would suggest to me that there are going to be some complicated and difficult times ahead of us.
Yeah, like Mike Maloney says, he says the further back you study history, the further ahead you can see what may transpire. And I think that's a truism. Those are not his exact words, but basically that's what the concept was. What I fear is that, you know, I grew up at a time when, you know, if you made $10, you saved 11. you didn't eat. Yep. you know what I mean. Yep. I mean that. I was the sales promotion and advertising coordinator for AMC stores, 1440 Broadway, expensive real estate, right? And let me tell you, I'll tell you what my monthly salary was. Hold on to your seat. I mean, this is going to impress you. $362.50 a month. You know, and I was still, great job, by the way, but I was still able to save a little bit of money. You know, I wouldn't dare buy something, put it on credit, and then say, well, I'll pay for it when I get my next paycheck. But the world has changed. The world is so in debt. I fear that in the United States, at least, there will be people rioting in the street if, in fact, we have a problem. You know, a currency crisis. There's no way out for most people. I mean, they're in tough times now.
Maybe I didn't make myself clear. We're going to have horrendous times for the next 2 or 3 years and perhaps longer. You should be very worried, and you should be getting prepared because it's going to be worse than anything you've seen in your lifetime.
Yeah.
And I don't like saying this. I wish I could say, oh, well, don't worry, everything will be okay. You know, go to the beach. Maybe everything will be okay. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I sure hope so.
Yeah. Well, you know, Jim, you're not alone. You know, I've had so many people on this program, you know, notable people who, you know, with the institutes, the Cato Institute and, you know, the Mises organization and all this. I've had, you know, my friend Gerald Celente from the Bronx, you know, he was on the program, but they're all blowing the same horn, they're sounding the same alarm, you know, and I guess, you know, it gets to a point where someone's crying wolf and they go, oh, don't listen to him, he's crying wolf again. And I wonder if people are getting desensitized to all of that.
Well, if they are, they're making a serious mistake, just like the boy who cried wolf, who made a mistake. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you some good news, though. I know you're libertarian radio. This is going to be great for the libertarians because the other parties are already falling into total disrepute, totally ignored or ridiculed. So somebody's going to come out of this, just like in 1856 and 1860, new parties emerged because there was a lot of confusion and turmoil in the land. And out came a new party that became successful, and another party disappeared. The party which will probably come out of this doing much better in the future is the Libertarian Party. So you should keep your job.
Well, I hope so. Well, that's encouraging. Good news. What do you know? This is Good News Radio. Now we have the Donald running against, as General Celente would say, Hitlery. I love when he says that, Hitlery. How do you see the candidates, and how do you project things will work out, depending on who wins?
Well, first, I will vote for the Libertarian. I'm happy to tell you, Joe, that in my lifetime, I have never voted for a person who's won the presidency of the United States. And you look back at the turkeys who've been elected in my lifetime, and you will see why I'm so proud of that.
Yeah.
I've always voted a protest vote. I don't know which will win. There will probably be some kind of disaster in the fall, and that may get Donald Trump elected, because when there's a disaster, people look for the man on the white horse. If Donald Trump does what he says he's going to do, it will lead to bankruptcy and war for all of us. If Mrs. Clinton wins somehow, it will also lead to bankruptcy and war. It'll just take longer with her. Neither one of these guys has a clue what's going on, and both of them are going to exacerbate the problems which are already on the way.
Yeah. Well, if Donald gets in, there are people who are predicting, cataclysmic events because of his, sort of cowboy nature of just spouting off and doing things. Well, we don't do things that way. I mean, someone doesn't say anything and then everyone runs and does it. It takes, there's a lot of people involved in the conversation. So I'm not too afraid of that as so many people are. Now, I know you've mentioned that gold, of course, is going to gain in value. Every time you say that, I say to myself, yes, it's the healthiest person in the hospice, And I don't know if you feel that way, but it sure seems, with our debt approaching $19.5 billion on the government figures, it's probably a heck of a lot more than that, And did I say billion? Someone just corrected me. $1 trillion. I'm sorry. I meant to say $1 trillion. $19.5 trillion, and it's the incline of the debt increase is going to increase when we get closer to 2018 and 2019. It starts going just straight up. So I know on the near term, you said that the U.S. dollar will gain in value relative to other currencies. So you are investing or saving in U.S. dollars now. But what about longer term? Let's say the next 6 months or year.
Joe, I own U.S. dollars. I own gold. I'm not buying gold at the moment. Gold has been going straight up recently. I've been even thinking about selling some gold this morning as a hedge against all the gold I own. But I am not selling my U.S. dollars. If anything, I might buy more. But agriculture also. You're out there in Oklahoma where a lot of people know how to drive a tractor. Agriculture, I'm very optimistic about agriculture worldwide. I'd say U.S. dollars and agriculture at the moment are the things about which I'm extremely optimistic.
Okay. Jim, we have someone on the line that'd like to break in and ask you a question. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, but Joe, I can only stay for 6 more minutes. If we want to go longer, we can go an hour or two. I'll just have to come back later. But go ahead.
Okay,
sure.
All right. We'll cut. How about we go for 6 minutes, and then maybe we'll arrange to come back at another time. Would that be fair enough?
By all means.
Oh,
yes,
I'd love
yes,
that.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Line 1, you're on the air. We only have a couple of minutes. Your question, please, and thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Hello, line 1, you're on the air.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, your question or comment, please.
All right. Jim, thank you for joining Joe on this show. Always been a fan of yours for many years. My question really dovetails what Joe was talking about. I'm in navigating the stock market and precious metals and miners. I've been reasonably comfortable with how I'm handling that, but my concern is I'm about 1/3 in cash U.S. dollars, and the whole fiat currency world and the direction of currencies and an imminent currency collapse concerns me. What trigger events could happen. Do you feel that sitting on U.S. dollars in the coming months, at least, if not longer, should be a conservative play, or what would eventually lead to its demise?
Well, first of all, I own a lot of U.S. dollars at the moment. I probably own more. I know I own more U.S. dollars than any other currency as we speak, and I'm thinking about buying more. The U.S. dollar is a flawed currency. You're exactly right. It's got terrible problems. We're the largest debtor nation in the history of the world and getting worse. But when there's turmoil, which is here and which is coming, people look for a safe haven. They think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven. They don't know anything else. They're not going to buy the euro. They're not going to buy most other currencies. So the dollar is going to go higher and higher. So you call it a conservative approach. I find it a very interesting way to make money in the next couple of years. In my view, the dollar is going to get overpriced. It's going to become it might even turn into a bubble. Now, if and when that happens, I hope I'm smart enough to sell it. Where I'll put it, I don't know. It might be gold at that point. A lot of times when the dollar goes up, gold goes down. Who knows where it'll be at that point? Let's just hope we get the first part right. But you should be very careful.
Thank you for your comment, and again, I appreciate you being on the show today. I'll let go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
I guess he heard that, we were in a sort of a rush to close the program out because you have to leave. Jim, we have a couple of minutes. I'd like to leave the last couple of minutes for you to sort of wrap things up and give us some sort of conclusion or closure to this conversation, and tell our listeners anything else they'd like to hear.
I cannot emphasize enough that the world for the last year or two has been going sideways in anticipation of what is coming next. And what is coming next is going to be a lot of economic and financial turmoil worldwide. The war part, just get through the first part with all the financial problems that are coming. We're going to have an election. Other countries are having elections. In times like this, people always look for a man or a woman on a white horse who's got strong, simple answers. That always leads to strong, simple problems or complicated problems down the road. So you should be very worried. Everybody should be trying to figure out how they're going to survive the next 2 or 3 years, because many of us will not. I hope I do. Yeah. We'll see.
Well, when you say survive, I just want to just wrap this up. Are you talking about making certain that you have all the necessities in life and that you're not cut short and that you can withstand even a very hard hit for a short period of time or whatever?
I am talking about possible riots in the streets, even in America. We've already had riots in the streets in our history in the last decade. Just be prepared for any contingency.
Okay.
Including having some money safe and having all of your investments that you yourself know what they are and why you have them. Right. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to you. Can listen to Joe's wife, but don't listen to anybody else. Okay?
Jim, thank you so much for being on our program. It's been absolutely
delightful. Send me an email and we'll schedule some more, okay?
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. I'll be talking to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends. Let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground. Until next time, this is Joe Cristiano. You've been listening to Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.